Yes, Sophia. What's wrong? It won't let you type.
It just goes to option.
Oh, okay. Go ahead and close that. And click on that folder. Okay, it should still show up in downloads. So let's try your downloads folder. You may have to give it a double click. Okay. And then, okay, so that's fine. So go back to Cami. Okay, and then open from my computer. And then downloads. So maybe you may have to go to this PC. Not sure why yours is organized, but this has been a problem lately. The tech people have changed something. Oh, you're welcome. Then I'm dealing with it too. They're going to remote in on my computer because I keep setting it so that it doesn't do weird things like that, and it just keeps reverting. So we're going to be looking at the question of socialization and gender. I mean, this is a sociology class, and so we'll definitely be tackling the nurture side of this argument, but we're also going to consider the nature side as well. The question of gender is hotly debated. We will only be able to address kind of the current state of things. Every semester, the content for this changes. The assignments for this change, readings for discussion assignments, all of it changes because this is kind of a rapidly developing area. But I want you to be able to explain the way things currently stand. Thank you. In the debate over gender's biological and its social origins, right, or nature and nurture as origins. I want you to understand the different ways of conceptualizing gender as fixed or a fluid construct. And I want you to be able to take your own position on this debate. I want it to be an informed opinion, and I want you to be able to defend it. This is not about me trying to get you to see things one way or the other. It is about equipping you to figure out what you think about this. Okay. The overview. As I stated, this is another area of the nature versus nurture debate. Okay. As we get into it, we need to understand sex and gender as two different things. Sex is biological only, right? Male, female. We will also see along the way there are people who are defined as intersex due to chromosomes, hormones, anatomical anomalies. They are not clearly male or female. Then gender. Gender is very much the social side of this. Right? It's our different understandings of men and women, or other gender categories. Whether that's non-binary, a gender that does not match biological sex, whatever the case may be. We're talking about the social kind of definitions or associations with biological sex. Now, up front, let's just kind of present both sides in very brief form. The nature side argues that a person's gender, like their sex, is determined by biology. Which means a person's gender naturally matches to their biological sex. And the nature side argues that boys, men, girls, women are inherently, right, and naturally or innately predisposed to important differences in personality, in their interests, in their abilities. Now, this is not, don't jump to the conclusion that the nature side are going to argue that one sex is more capable than the other. The nature side argues that there are different abilities that go with different sexes and different genders. And the nature side, we also need to be clear so that we don't mischaracterize them. They're not arguing that there are never conflicts between a person's biological sex and their gender. What they do argue is that when those mismatches occur, they are due to biological anomalies. Doesn't mean that there's something wrong morally or in the character of those people. There is simply a biological deviation from the norm. That's why it's not deviation in the sense of like a moral deviancy, but a deviation from statistical normal gender and sex matches. Or the nature side will acknowledge that some people, not acknowledge is the wrong word for that, will argue that when there is not a biological determinant that can be identified, it can be down to a person's conscious choice. The nurture side takes a much narrower view of sex distinctions. Specifically, it says the physical differences between males and females are very few. They do not include differences in the brain structures of males and females. And that gender, right, is not based on biological differences because they're minor. It's not that they're not noticeable most of the time, but right, those distinctions are narrow and, again, don't rise to the level of the brain. So gender is instead something that we learn through our socialization. They point out that it's much like the way we learn language. And just as we learn language from a very early stage, we also learn gender distinctions from a very early age. But even if they are learned from infancy, they are still learned. We're not born with them. And then those differences that begin early are consistently reinforced, bless you, throughout our lifetimes. And we will start with the nature side. Mostly because it's kind of just an easier place to start and understand, and then move on to the nurture side. All right, now, some of this will be repeat, but I wanted to present you kind of both sides of the debate in a nutshell first, so that we have something to go on. And remember, nature side tells us that the sexes match to the genders, male to men, female to women. And the nature side for the most part. I mean, there are other arguments about this that would be more theologically based, but the nature side, from a social science standpoint, focuses on evolutionary biology. And also be careful with this. This is not theological, but for people who are more inclined to a theological view, this is not big E evolution that suggests that we all emerged from some kind of primordial mix of elements and molecules and then developed over billions of years. This is little e evolution, just the same kind of evolution that leads to different breeds of dogs or selective breeds of cattle, right? That same kind of evolution, different gene mixes, right, causing changes in humanity over time. Right, and as this image might suggest to you, this starts quite far back in our development. And the starting point is the fact that only females can bear children. Thank you. And it's not that males can have no role in child rearing, but males do not have mammary glands capable of producing milk for human infants to feed. And so females have a distinct role in childbearing and childbearing. Also, human females are different to lots of our other fellow mammals in that human females can become pregnant at multiple times of the year. Now, if you're wondering, well, doesn't every mammal do that? No. So those deer skulls up on the wall, those deer had to be shot at a particular time of year because the Missouri Department of Conservation only has the deer hunting, well, at least a big chunk of the season, during what's called the rut. And it's called the rut because that's when the bucks are going a bit crazy and fighting one another because the females, the does, are in estrus, which means some people refer to that as in heat, but that means that they are capable of becoming pregnant, and it only happens at that time of year. And humans don't have one time of year when they can become pregnant. Human females can become pregnant at any point in the year. Their babies are also different. Our babies have large heads because they have big brains. And they are fed with mammary glands, and this goes on for quite a long time before they are weaned and eat other forms of food. You've all probably at some point in your lives seen a nature documentary where like an antelope is born and it falls out of its mother, it lands, and then it pops up and starts walking around. And humans don't do that. Right? That would be really disturbing if they did. That would be creepy. Right? But that's why ours are different. And right, this constrains females. They have to put up with these helpless, big-brained, slow-developing babies. And this makes the females of the human species less mobile. And because of this, as the argument goes, female humans prioritized nurturing, right, caring for their young. And we do know that there's a physiological connection between this. A mother seeing her baby experiences increases in something called oxytocin, which causes feelings of happiness, but also causes the production and letdown of milk to feed the baby. This also tells us, or also explains, that females prioritized working together and having social relationships with other females. Now, there's not necessarily, there's not some gene to get along with people and pick berries. Well, maybe there is, but I don't think we found it yet. But this is an evolutionary biological argument, which means things that are good for human survival tend to get picked up in our genes, because the people that don't have the traits to be nurturing and form cooperative social relationships were more likely to die. And if you're dead, you can't make babies, which means your genes don't get passed along as much as the people who did have these, what are called adaptive traits. And for these early females, it didn't take a whole lot to attract a male. And I know some of you are thinking, I'm pretty sure there are males that still don't require much in order to form attraction. And I think you're probably right about that. But at this stage in humanity, really all that's essential to attract a male mate is to be young, and by young, being fertile. Just to be clear, nothing else is required. Sorry, I know that went kind of fast. Everybody finished with that, or I still hear some clacking? Now, flipping over kind of to the male side of things. Males may not be picky about mates, but they do need to be able to access them for the purposes of mating and starting families. Have a good day, Emma. And access to the mates depends on the physical strength of a male. And also how good they are at hunting. And hunting prowess, or skill at hunting, is good for two reasons. One, it's about providing food. If you can't provide food for your mate and offspring, they will die, and your genes will not be passed on. But skill with weapons also helps you fight off rivals for access to females. And this, right, physical strength, hunting prowess, becomes part of social dominance. And social dominance isn't just about being strong and good at hunting. It also has particular personality traits: confidence, a willingness to take risks, or maybe even, in some cases, risk-seeking behavior. And a tendency in your personality to be aggressive, especially towards other males. Right. And here's where we start, if we haven't already, starting to realize that some of these males may not really be what we would consider like upstanding citizens today. And they want to maximize what they get while doing as little actual work as possible. Take by force what others might produce by work. And as an example of this, it might be that Miles is hunting a woolly mammoth. And Rocky's watching from a distance. Rocky's watching as Miles goes to all of this work, maybe works with some other people to kill this woolly mammoth, right? Skin it, right? Clean it. What's that? Well, no, this is a long time ago. They're still alive at this point. But that's a fair. I should have clarified that, Miles. And right, Rocky continues to watch, and Miles has killed this woolly mammoth, skinned it, and gotten its guts out of it, and started to cut it into meat that can be hauled away back to a cave or some kind of dwelling. And Miles, that's a lot of work. That's a lot of work. And then Rocky moves in, stabs Miles, and takes all of that meat for himself. Right? Rocky has done almost none of the work, right, but has maximized his resources simply by taking what he wants by force from poor Miles, who really did all the work, gets none of the rewards, and is now dead. And what this combination allowed males to do was to prevent other males from accessing mates. This was also an attractive set of qualities for females who see these males as able to provide food and other resources to keep their offspring alive. You can also see that male as a protector from other males. And if some of this very much sounds like humans as animals, well, it kind of is. Okay, let's stop there